5.
Make sure that CCN clip ready. We need it for the second.
4.
Facts from the Clarendon correspondent coming through.
3.
All the international stories in the folder. Good to go.
2.
Newsreaders all set.
Yeah, man, everything's set, everything ready.
1.
From the grill to Morant Point, Newstalk 93 FM has got it covered. Across the 7 seas to the 4 corners of the world, it's all captured on the 93 radar. 93.1, 93.3, 93.5, 93.7 and 93.9 on your FM dial. Real News at 5 starts now.
Good afternoon, time for the 5 o'clock news roundup here on Newstalk 93 FM. I'm Errol Lee.
And I'm Andre Bernard.
Coming up in this newscast, opposition spokesperson on health and healthy lifestyles, Marlene Malahou Fort, calls on Health Ministry to disclose the full report of the internal audit.
Police High Command orders the closure of the Halfway Tree lockup because of health concerns.
Human rights group Stand Up for Jamaica says recent cases of police arrested for criminal activity show the relevance of Indicom.
And extradited Jamaican pleads guilty, not guilty rather, to 1994 stabbing of ex-girlfriend.
Now the news in detail. Opposition spokesperson on health and healthy lifestyles, Senator Marlene Malahou Fort, is calling on the Health Ministry to disclose the full report of the internal audit. She says this after presenting a damning report of the poor state of the health sector at a press conference called at the Jamaica Labour Party Belmont Road headquarters today.
Those who have been calling out that something is wrong and needs to be fixed. How could the Minister of Health, Permanent Secretary, and all of those in the leadership believe that after all the public outcry, it is acceptable to not disclose the full contents of the review to those stakeholders?
She also questions why the Jamaica Medical Doctors Association, the JMDA, has to visit the Ministry of Health for the report, and was ostracized when it insisted on getting full access to the report.
You want to tell me that as a country we do not deserve better governance? I mean, why should the Jamaica Medical Doctors Association, for example, have to go to the office of the Ministry of Health to have a read of the report? Do we not deserve better than this? Don't forget, that when the doctors cried out, some of them were labeled liars and mischief makers. When we did our reports and confirmed that what was coming out of the health sector was bad and worse, we were labeled partisan.
Malahou Fort blasted the Minister of Health, Fenton Ferguson, and his ministry for withholding information, stating that institutions must be protected and people should not be stigmatized.
And know that there is some confirmation, albeit we believe not truly reflecting the horrible state of the health sector. We are told that institutions must be protected and people must not be stigmatized. Come on. The people who go to those institutions who have been waiting, some have died while waiting, they know the horrible state of those institutions.
Opposition spokesperson on health and healthy lifestyles, Marlene Malahou Fort, last month, Senator Malahou Fort called on the Auditor General to conduct an audit of the island's public health system. At the time, she said the calls came because of numerous complaints about hospital mismanagement, severe shortage of supplies, broken equipment, and dispensing of outdated drugs by several drug-served pharmacies.
And the president of the Jamaica Medical Doctors Association, JMDA, Dr. Alfred Dawes, is calling on the Ministry of Health to give the public more information on the recently concluded audit of the health sector. He says while he shares the ministry's concerns that giving names will only cause stigmatization and prejudices against the healthcare facilities and workers, there are details in the full report that will shed more light on the true state of the sector. Dr. Dawes says the ministry must also immediately start investigations into how the increased budgetary allocations to the regions are being spent. He says the sector needs revolutionary short and medium to long-term plans to deal with the chronic shortages and mismanagement. He says the Ministry of Health should set up a committee to include stakeholder groups to monitor the reform of the health sector and report to the public on the progress of the reforms stemming from this audit.
As part of efforts to address the issue of shortage of pharmaceuticals at some public health facilities, Health Minister Dr. Fenton Ferguson says the ministry has started the implementation of a pharmacy management information system. This, he says, will help to track items, their availability and expiration date, as well as order levels. He says this will increase the efficiency of the management of drugs throughout the public health sector. Dr. Ferguson pointed out that the Health Ministry will be spending some $8 billion to procure pharmaceuticals, sundries and reagents for the public health sector. Contracts were signed last week with 47 suppliers to increase the supply of pharmaceuticals and sundries by $3.8 billion to the public health sector. And in addition, 3 contracts valued at $1.4 billion to suppliers for the University Hospital of the West Indies were signed in July.
And despite this latest effort by the Health Minister, the Jamaica Labour Party spokesperson on health and healthy lifestyle, Senator Marlene Malahoo Fort, says both the health sector and the government need to be realigned. She says the many problems cannot be fixed with the same set of people who do not want to accept responsibility for their shortcomings.
The health sector needs to be realigned. The government of Jamaica needs to be realigned. And we're not going to get it with the same set of people who cannot accept responsibility for their failures. Who, when you call on them to take responsibility in the governmental and public realm, on the partisan side, they are given an award at the same time. I mean, what bigger slap in the face?
She also calls on members of the media to be objective despite their respective political loyalties.
And I'm going to challenge you, ladies and gentlemen of the media, because I know we all have our loyalties. And sometimes as we push frontiers and boundaries, we become uncomfortable. But you know what my training has taught me? That we have a quadrinity of self. We have our emotional self, our physical self, our intellectual self, and our spiritual self. And very often, the emotions we feel are very important clues to what is happening. And instead of dismissing the discomfort or the impatience that we feel, I ask that we just sit with those discomforts and impatience or anger, outrage, and just ask yourself what is happening here.
Senator Malahoo Fort says the governing People's National Party cannot be trusted to administer the affairs of the Jamaican people.
The Jamaican people deserve better from our leaders. The People's National Party cannot be trusted with the reins of government. They want the work, but they don't want to do the work. They want power, but they refuse to empower the people. Sick people need on-time, quality health care to become well. Sick people want to know that when they go to their hospitals and their health centers, they will be taken care of and given a fighting chance to go and take care of their families and earn a decent living and turn around to grow the nation and further develop the country.
She gives some examples of the state of the patient care due to the poor state of the health sector under the current government.
I carry the pain of that mother who told me that her little child was waiting and waiting and waiting for an appointment and died before the appointment. And then after the child died, she got a call from the hospital to say, you can get a space. Only a couple of days ago, we were down in Montego Bay. I carry the tears of the man who says, Miss, my son go to the hospital. And him wait all overnight, him still await to be treated. And the poor boy might soon die. This is what is happening in our public hospitals and health centers.
Opposition spokesperson on health and healthy lifestyles, Marlene Malahoo Fort. She was speaking at a press conference at the JLP headquarters in Kingston this afternoon.
You're listening to news on Newstalk 93 FM. It's 9.5 minutes after 5. The Kingston and St. Andrew Public Health Department has threatened to close the Halfway Tree lockup because of health concerns. Assistant Commissioner of Police George Coelho, who oversees the area in which Halfway Tree falls, says that the High Command is aware of the concerns. He says before the Health Department issued a closure order since Tuesday, the force has been removing all prisoners. In the past, the Halfway Tree lockup has been cited for being overcrowded and being overrun with rodents. In recent weeks, there were reports that a prisoner became ill after he was bitten on his foot by a rat. Coelho says he's not aware of that report. However, it's understood that the prisoners have been receiving medical attention.
The challenge to Raymond Price's leadership of the People's National Party PNP St. Elizabeth North East constituency has been postponed by a week from tomorrow to next Saturday. Chairman of the PNP's Region 5 Selection Committee, Hopeton McCarthy, says the instructions have come from the party headquarters in Kingston for the delegate selection to be postponed from tomorrow until next week. Santa Cruz businessman Evan Redman is challenging Member of Parliament Price for chairmanship of the constituency organisation and the right to represent the PNP in parliamentary elections, which are constitutionally due by late next year. McCarthy said the challenge to another sitting MP, Hugh Buchanan, in St. Elizabeth Southwest, would go ahead as planned on Sunday in Black River. Businessman and former banker Ewan Stevenson is seeking to unseat Buchanan as the PNP's standard-bearer in St. Elizabeth Southwest.
Human rights group Stand Up for Jamaica says the recent cases of police personnel being arrested in relation to criminal activities show that the Independent Commission of Investigations, INDECOM, is important to rooting out rogue cops. The group says those who have been bashing INDECOM are too short-sighted and do not have the best interest of justice. Stand Up for Jamaica says the work of INDECOM is to make members of the force more accountable and respect the rights of Jamaicans, and it should be supported. The human rights group argues that contrary to the views of critics, including politicians, Jamaica's political culture does not or does more to influence the factors which drive crime rather than the actions of INDECOM. It cites poverty, the lack of opportunity, and garrison politics as factors which should be addressed, as it believes that this will help with Jamaica's crime problem.
Attorney at law Peter Champagny says he expects to receive all the evidence the prosecution has against Gratiano Green, who is his client and one of the two men charged with the murder of Police Constable Lyndon Barrett in the West Kingston community of Denham Town in July. On Tuesday, a court ordered the Crown to make all disclosure to the defense by Thursday. Champagny says he was informed yesterday that the documents are ready and he intends to collect them today. The case will again be mentioned on Monday. Meanwhile, the Independent Commission of Investigations, INDECOM, is continuing its probe into the alleged beating of Green while in police custody. Champagny says he is extremely concerned after his client reported that he suffered a fracture to his nose as a result of the beating.
The opposition Jamaica Labour Party says the threat of boycott issued by the St. James business leaders against their Chinese counterparts must be withdrawn, as it could represent an attack on an ethnic group. On Wednesday, President of the Montego Bay Chamber of Commerce, Georgia Henry, issued the threat, arguing that the Chinese are unwilling to contribute to the social development of the parish of St. James. Horace Chang, who represents Northwest St. James, says issuing a threat to new Chinese businesses is wrong and could be viewed as targeting one group of people.
Education Minister Reverend Ronald Thwaites says early childhood education should focus on both academic achievement and socialization. Addressing yesterday's behavior management breakfast, the minister said he believes that the important period of orientation is at the early childhood level. He says socialization should be the focus of early childhood education as of this school year.
It isn't as important for the children to learn the timetables and to be reading by the time they're 3.5 or 5. What is important for them at the early childhood experience, when they are properly nourished and encouraged by the partnership of parents and their teachers, is for them to learn, how to cooperate, how to stand in a line, why to reverence the flag, how to say yes sir and no ma'am, how to behave themselves. If they learn these things at the early childhood level, the academic and other areas will be well advanced when they get to that age. Can we reorient early childhood education towards socialization with an intensity that we have not seen in the past?
Thwaites says at the primary level, it is only reasonable to expect students to achieve certain levels of literacy and numeracy, as well as proper behavior.
The primary level, it's not a question of stripping down in order to demean all that is evident in our schools, but the basic things are that at age 8, a child has reasonable mastery of English and of the principles of numeracy. But the third element of primary school is proper behavior pattern. If all that we did in our primary schools was to reinforce adequate behavior and have appropriate standards of literacy and numeracy, we would have achieved more than we are achieving right now.
Education Minister Ronald Thwaites. The breakfast was held to inform stakeholders of steps by the ministry and its partners so far to respond to the surge in the maladaptive behavior of some students. The ministry says it has implemented a number of behavior modification and management programs with a view to implementing systems to curb antisocial behavior in educational institutions.
550 workers at Golden Grove Sugar Factory in St. Thomas have received their redundancy payments. They were given notice pay on August 7. About 600 workers at the company have lost their jobs, but not all are entitled to redundancy payments. Golden Grove Sugar, which is a subsidiary of Seprod, has racked up losses of some $2 billion despite a $3 billion investment in the entity.
Close to 15 people were left homeless after a fire of unknown origin destroyed a house on Headley Avenue, Druseland in Kingston this morning. Police reports are that about 2:30 a.m., persons saw smoke coming from the premises and raised an alarm. Firefighters from the York Park Fire Station were called to the scene to extinguish the blaze. Residents say the 5-bedroom house was totally destroyed.
A man was shot and killed near the Ocherius bus stop in Linstead St. Catherine this morning, while his female partner was injured in the incident. The dead man has been identified as 33-year-old Terrick Hall. Reports are that Hall and the woman were walking along the roadway when they were pounced upon by gunmen. The woman is currently being treated at hospital. Her condition is not known. The wanted man who was extradited from Jamaica earlier this week, who police said fled Massachusetts after allegedly stabbing his girlfriend in her home 20 years ago, has pleaded not guilty to assault. 59-year-old Arnold Gabardon entered the plea yesterday on charges including assault with intent to murder. Gabardon was arrested last month after he was tracked to Jamaica, where he was living with a relative. He is charged with armed assault with intent to murder, assault and battery with a dangerous weapon, stalking and other offenses in connection with the January 1994 attack. State police say Gabardon broke down the woman's door and slashed her throat as she slept, leaving her for dead. He then fled to Jamaica. That's your local news. For international news, we join the BBC.
BBC News with Jerry Smith. The Hungarian government says it's sending buses to take the thousands of marching refugees and migrants to the Austrian border. Minutes later, the Interior Ministry in Vienna said Austria was prepared to receive the migrants. Hungary's decision came after large numbers of migrants broke through police lines. The father of the Syrian boy whose drowning gave renewed urgency to efforts to solve the Syrian migrant crisis is said to have turned down Canada's offer to grant him asylum. His sister said he told her he just wanted to stay in Syria at the grave of his wife and 2 sons, whose bodies were returned to Syria on Friday for burial. Saudi Arabia says it's happy with President Obama's assurances that the recent nuclear deal with Iran won't imperil the Gulf states. Speaking after King Salman held talks with Mr. Obama in Washington, the Saudi foreign minister said his country was satisfied the deal would contribute to security and stability in the region. He said he hoped Iran would use the windfall from the lifting of sanctions for its own development, rather than engage in what he termed as nefarious activities in the region. The United Arab Emirates says 45 of its soldiers deployed in Yemen have been killed. Emirati troops are part of the Saudi-led coalition that's supporting the Yemeni government in its war against Houthi rebels. The authorities in Tajikistan say a deputy government minister led a group of gunmen who attacked 2 buildings in and around the capital Dushanbe. Officials say 8 policemen were killed as well as 2 attackers. But they said the attackers' alleged leader, Deputy Defense Minister Abdul Halim Nazaruddin, fled the scene. The Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton says she's sorry for the controversy caused by her use of a private email server while Secretary of State. Her opponents have accused her of putting U.S. security at risk by using an unsecured system. BBC News.
Broadcast Jamaican and Newstalk 93 FM now gear the news in the Jamaican language.
Good evening. My name is Kadeen Marshall and this are the news in the Jamaican language. Dr. Alfred Dawes, the president for the Jamaica Medical Doctor Association, said the Ministry of Health must give out more information on what the audits say about the public health sector. Him said the ministry must start looking at how the extra money I spent to what them get the hospital them. As according to Dr. Dawes, the sector needs some short and long-term plan to make sure it run good. On top of that, him said the Minister for Health must set up a committee for monitor the health sector and tell the public on the changes them will make. Gunman shot and killed one man near the Ocharius bus stop this morning. The woman when Ben walk with get hurt too. As according to the report, all and the woman Ben walk on the sidewalk when some man fire some shot on them. Police said the woman in a hospital, nobody know how she do. The opposition has said the businessman them in a St. James must take back the threat what they make against the Chinese people, cause it could have looked like them take set pan people from the ethnic group there. Wednesday gone, Georgia Henry, where the president of the Montego Bay Chamber, being accused of the Chinese people them now do nothing for develop the parish. But Horace Chang, where the MP for Northwest St. James, said them not for threaten the Chinese for the business, cause it could have looked like so them take set pan them. News from the rest of the Caribbean. The CARICOM Youth Ambassador them, CYA, start one 2-month program what them call I Am CARICOM for raise some money for help out Dominica. Tropical storm Erica mashed up Dominica last week and killed over 24 people and mashed up the country bad. The government said 9 areas in the country a special disaster area. The CYA are going to try to collect money from the Youth Council school in the CARICOM country them for help out Dominica. Them start yesterday and them are go up until October 31st. News from foreign. King Salman from Saudi Arabia are going to meet with American President Barack Obama. This time first trip to America since him turned king in January. The king are going to talk about the Gulf state them, American nuclear deal with Iran. Obama are going to talk to the king about Yemen where the Saudi them a fight against the Houthi rebel them. My name is Kadeen Marshall and that's the news in the Jamaican language.
Broadcast Jamaican and Newstalk 93 FM just give the news in the Jamaican language.
The 5 o'clock Sports Roundup is brought to you by Newstalk 93 FM, life-changing radio.
Good afternoon, I am Michaela Drama Johns with your 5 o'clock sports roundup here on Newstalk 93 FM, and we begin with football. Jamaica's Reggae Boys will this evening make a landmark performance on their road to Russia for the 2018 World Cup. This as they open their campaign at the third round of the CONCACAF qualifying phase by facing Nicaragua in game 1 of a 2-leg encounter. Today's match, set for an 8 p.m. kickoff, will be inside the National Stadium. It marks the first meeting between the two nations, with Jamaica heading in as favourites, runners-up of the recent Gold Cup tournament and currently ranked 52nd in the world. Meanwhile, the Central Americans are 139th, but are prepared and looking for a winning result, according to their Football Federation President Jacinto Reyes. Meanwhile, head coach of today's host, Winfred Schaefer, says his players have good motivation and spirit, with everybody having more confidence. He also says going in as favourites, the players are in a new situation and they must be prepared for that mentality. Seeking an advantage heading into next Tuesday's return leg, the German says his charges will attack from the beginning. Meanwhile, live commentary on the match will be available here on Newstalk 93 FM. Jamaica Brawlers Group will at 6:30 p.m. face Spanish Grain Store in the KSA Farverside Business House competition. Also at that time are the matches which see Derrimon Trading Company Limited versus McKay Security Company Limited, CariMed versus Bank of Jamaica, and Office of the Prime Minister OPM versus Sunlight Windows and Doors. Then at 7:15 p.m. Pika face Peak Bottling Company and Care Place Salada Foods Jamaica Limited. All matches will be played at the National Water Commission NWC Playfield in Mona.
Further afield, the Republic of Ireland were the day's biggest winners in today's Euro 2016 qualifiers as they handed Gibraltar a 4-0 defeat. They, with the win, moved up to third place in Group D. Meanwhile, Northern Ireland beat Faroe Islands 3-1 and Poland fell to Germany by a similar 3-1 scoreline. Now to take a look at cricket, West Indies one-day captain Jason Holder has been given yet another leadership role, this time replacing Dinesh Ramdin as Test skipper. This comes after a meeting of the West Indies Cricket Board WRCB selectors on Wednesday. Ramdin was in charge for 15 months and Holder will now start his job next month as the regional side have a tour of Sri Lanka. Meanwhile, for the women, Jamaica's star with bat Stephanie Taylor has been appointed captain of the Windies women. She replaces Marisa Aguirre of Trinidad and Tobago, who captained the side for some 6 years. According to Chief Selector Clive Lord, the time had come for a change. Taylor will lead a home series for which an 18-member training squad was recently named as they faced Pakistan next month. And a quick look at horse racing. A suspension has been handed to jockey Aaron Chatry by the stewards of the Jamaica Racing Commission, JRC. The ban is to last 10 days and follows an inquiry held last Tuesday for poor conduct in the stewards' room after a disqualification of Chatry's mount Woman is Boss from first place on August 29. And to wrap up, we give you tennis. Venus Williams today upset 12-seed Belinda Bencic to reach the US Open fourth round. The two-time champion, the oldest player on the draw at 35 years old, beat the 18-year-old Swiss 6-3, 6-4. Seeded 23rd, she could meet her younger sister Serena Williams in the quarterfinals. Meanwhile, on the other side of the net, top seed Novak Djokovic got by Italy's Andreas Seppi in a straight sets win of 6-3, 7-5, 7-5. And the defending champion Marin Cilic also went into action today, earning a close win over Kazakhstan's Mikhail Kukushkin. It took 5 sets, with Cilic winning 6-7, 7-6, 6-3, 6-7, 6-1. And that's it for the 5 o'clock sports roundup here on Newstalk 93 FM. And I am Michaela Drama John saying stay tuned for the business news and weather report.
The 5 o'clock sports roundup was brought to you by Newstalk 93 FM, life-changing sports radio.
Let's look at some business news on the local stock market today. The index advanced by 2,637.77 to close at 100,293.46. The junior market index declined by 2.90 points to close at 966.98. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 18 stocks, of which 8 advanced, 8 declined, and 2 traded firm. Market volume amounted to 1.7 million units, valued at over $22.5 million. Scotia Group was today's volume leader. Stocks advancing: Carreras, D&G, Gleaner, Lime, Sagicor Group, Sagicor Real Estate X Fund, Scotia Group, and Supreme Ventures. Stocks declining: Siboney, Grace, Broilers, Stock Exchange, JMB Group, NCB, Panjam Investment Trust, and Scotia Investments. And on the foreign exchange market, the US dollar closed at $118.15, the pound $180.30, the Canadian $88.89, and the euro $131.11. That's business news.
And now we take a look at the weather. There is a weak high-pressure ridge across the northern Caribbean and Jamaica. The ridge is expected to persist across the northern Caribbean until tomorrow. In the forecast for tonight, conditions will be mainly fair.
To end the news, the main points. Opposition spokesperson on health, Marlene Malahoo Fort, calls on Health Ministry to disclose the full report of the internal audit.
Police High Command orders the closure of the halfway tree lockup because of health concerns.
Human rights group Stand Up for Jamaica says recent cases of police arrested for criminal activity show the relevance of Indicom.
And extradited Jamaican man pleads not guilty to 1994 stabbing of ex-girlfriend.
That's your 5 o'clock news roundup here on Newstalk 93 FM. I'm Errol Lee.
And I'm Andre Bernard.